Hey guys, so today I am going to take a look at two 30mm Sigma lenses. This is one of those videos that you guys requested a while ago, and I have finally gotten around to doing it. This is the Sigma f2.8 versus Sigma f1.4 comparison. So before we take a look at some test shots, let's take a look at these two lenses up close. So here are the two lenses next to each other. The 2.8 on the right and the 1.4 on the left. And you could see that size difference. The 1.4 lens is about twice as long. It is noticeably heavier as well. The front optic is much larger on the 1.4, as you would expect, to let that much more light in. Around the back, both of them have electronic connections because both of these lenses have autofocus. Neither one of them has optical steady shot or any sort of internal stabilization. You do have to go native to get stabilization, or just purchase an A6500 and that way all of your lenses are stabilized. The 2.8 has this piano polished look with a metallic finish on the bottom. The 1.4 has a focus ring that really is the center of attention on this lens. It is very, very, very smooth. Probably one of the smoothest focus rings out there. Both lenses, as you can see, are made in Japan. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the side-by-side comparison. All right, so this is the first image that we will look at. On the left, I'll try to place all of the 30mm 2.8 photos, and on the right, I'll put the 1.4 photos just to keep things simple. So in this side-by-side, what I did is I shot the 2.8 lens at 2.8, and I shot the 1.4 lens at 1.4 using the same shutter speed and ISO. And you can see that this is very blown out, overexposed, but the purpose of showing you this is just the 1.4 lets in noticeably more light. All right, so here is the same picture now taken at f2.8 on both lenses. So let's take a look at the sharpness in the center. So it looks pretty close. Actually, the 2.8 lens looks a little sharper here than the 1.4. But if you move out, the hair is definitely sharper with the 1.4. So it looks like the focus was a little different with the 2.8, focused more on the face, which is more correct, whereas the 1.4 has focused more on the hair, slightly behind the eyes. Pretty interesting. Let's take a look at the background. Looks about the same to me. So bokeh is good with both. Take a look at the sleeve here. So the 1.4 looks a bit sharper here. There's a little bit more detail, but I think that the 2.8 lens did a better job of focusing on the eyes in this picture. So I'd still give the win to the 2.8 here. All right, so these two shots, I wanted to show subject isolation. So with the 2.8 lens, I shot it wide open. With the 1.4 lens, I also shot that wide open. You could see that the 1.4 lens at auto settings does look a bit brighter and a little bit creamier in the background. This looks more like a portrait than this one does. At 2.8, it's still a good photo, but the bokeh is nicer with the 1.4, so this looks like the more professional picture. Now let's zoom in and take a look at focus and sharpness. So in this case, the 1.4 at 1.4 looks a little bit sharper to me. Out to the hair, about the same. And let's take a look at this side. So here the 2.8 is a little sharper. So there is the difference in bokeh. 1.4 is a lot creamier than the 2.8. If we take a look at what happens when you stop down the 1.4, and use the exact same settings. Let's take a look at sharpness here. All right, so in this case, the 1.4 looks a little sharper to me. Yeah, definitely sharper right here. Let's look at this side. Yep, I would definitely say that the 1.4 is sharper. Bokeh is about the same. This is very close though. Both of these images look really good. So next, let's move on to something a little different. So I just took a shot at f10 to test out sharpness. So let's zoom in the center and take a look. You'll notice there's a little bit of a difference in color. The 1.4 lens seems to be a bit warmer, whereas the 2.8 lens seems a bit cooler or natural. As far as sharpness, if you look at the brick detail, they're about the same. If I had to choose the sharper one, I would give the slight advantage to the 1.4. And again, both of these shots are at f10, just testing sharpness. Let's move over into the corner. Again, very close. Let's take a look at this edge. Yeah, if you look at the roof here, the 1.4 is a little sharper. So this one goes to the 1.4 at f10. So this next image is comparing distortion. So what I'll do is I'll cycle from one to the other. This shot is the 2.8 lens, and this one is the 1.4. So again, 2.8, 1.4. You'll notice the tone difference. The 1.4 is a bit warmer. The 2.8 is more natural. However, the 1.4 also has a bit more barrel distortion. So the 2.8 looks very, very flat, very little barrel distortion. The 1.4 looks like there's a little bit of barrel distortion. So when it comes to distortion, the 2.8 lens is a little bit better. And the last shot that I wanted to compare was this one, which is a nighttime shot done with very poor lighting. And you'll notice that the shutter speeds on these pictures are different. The f-stops are different. ISO is at 100. So this is pretty interesting because when you set your camera to aperture priority and you shoot wide open, this is the difference that you will see. So with the 2.8 lens, because it is 2.8, the shutter speed is 5 seconds, which means that if your subject moves even slightly, you'll get this, which is blur. So as much as my wife is a great model for photos and she kept still, you can see that the image on the left is a bit blurry and the image on the right is actually pretty blurry as well. So the difference in shutter speed is 5 seconds versus 1.6 seconds because this is an f1.4 lens. And so you could see that with the f1.4, because your shutter speed is faster, you're able to stop motion a little bit better. And so your images at night are a little less blurry. The background though is pretty interesting. It's a little darker with the 1.4, and with the 2.8 it's a little lighter, but you'll notice that there's all of this noise here. So pretty interesting here. I'd say for nighttime photography, the 1.4 really does shine. And so if you are trying to capture shots with very poor lighting or very little lighting, the faster lens is the one to choose. So that is it for the side-by-side comparison. What is the conclusion? Well, I really came away from it impressed with the f2.8 lens. I didn't like it when I was just looking at it on Amazon and reading reviews, but after purchasing it, after taking a look at it and shooting with it, I really am impressed with this little lens. It's very compact, it's very easy to shoot. The autofocus is very accurate. I'd say the autofocus is a little bit more accurate than even on the f1.4. You still get decently good shallow depth of field. It really is a great all-around lens. If you are on a budget and you're looking for that first lens to upgrade from the kit lens, you should definitely take a look at this. And for $200 new or about $150 used, you honestly can't go wrong. Should you pay the extra $130 for the f1.4 lens? It really depends on who you are and what type of photos you like to shoot. I know for me personally, I am a big fan of fast primes, so the f1.4 is really appealing. That super shallow depth of field, the ability to shoot at nighttime and get really good pictures and videos is really appealing. If both of these lenses cost the exact same, I would absolutely pick the f1.4 lens. I think for certain people, the f1.4 lens will always be a better choice, but it is not without its drawbacks. Number one is the autofocus. It is not nearly as fast as a native lens. It's also not nearly as accurate. I've said this in past videos, it's accurate about 70% of the time. And in my comparison side by side, I really do think that the f2.8 is slightly more accurate, maybe 75% to this 70%. The second thing to consider is the size. It's a little bigger, a little heavier than the 2.8 option, so not as easy to pack in your bag and take with you everywhere. The third thing is color fringing. Now, this is not something that I showed in the side-by-side comparison pics, so something to look out for. Definitely if you're shooting at 1.4, you'll see a lot more of that. If you stop it down to 1.8 or you stop it to f2, then that will be less of an issue, but something to know if you are in the market for the f1.4 lens. Overall, in conclusion, Sigma products really do not disappoint. I've never had a bad experience with a Sigma lens. I've never had quality control issues with a Sigma lens that I've handled. They've all performed wonderfully. Every single Sigma lens that I've handled has really good build quality. They are very sharp lenses, and that's why they are so well respected in the photography world. So check these two options out. If you're on a budget, try this one. If you are looking for something that's just going to be super fast, super shallow depth of field, excellent for portraits and for night photography, check this one out. So that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something. Thank you guys for all of the likes and all the comments and all the support. Stay tuned for more. I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.